Hey guys, so this is it. This is the fighting knife. Okay, this is the project that came into fruition this week. Now I was this is in a like an association with Mr. Craig Ruby, who is the director of operations at Falcon Industries, a security contractor and advisor, and we were sort of chatting back and forth on Instagram about the possibility of a dedicated fighting knife, and like what an actual fighting knife, as in a standalone fighting knife, requires. Now I had the privilege of talking to Mr. Ruby this week, around about Tuesday, Wednesday I think it was, for a good hour or so, in which he basically gave me the specs on what he considered a dedicated fighting knife to be. Now, Mr. Ruby has decades of experience within the industry, and when somebody like that talks, I listen. You know what I'm saying? And this is what came of it. Now, he also said that a couple of my models were close to the mark already. There was a good grasp of what a dedicated fighting knife should have, and you might actually see sort of elements of those knives within this knife here. But what he did explain to me was the difference between a tactical knife and a dedicated fighting knife. And from what I can grasp is that a tactical knife can be used as a fighting knife. Say, for example, the Umbra, the sidearm, the Patron, but also contains EDC applications and other functions and stuff like that, whereas a dedicated fighting knife is purely for the purpose of, without putting too fine a point on it, dispatching your enemy as quickly and humanely as possible. And this is the culmination of our conversation and all the specs that he gave me, and the ideas that I had behind it, and the ideas that he wanted to see, which were a necessity on such a knife. So let me show you this. We've got, for a start, we've got a 6.5 inch blade. Okay, now I'm not going to go through every single element of this knife, because those who are in the know will recognise those elements without me having to explain them, and those who want one of these knives because it's a fucking awesome knife won't be overly concerned with the nuances contained within it, if that makes sense. So we've got a 6.5 inch blade. Overall length is 12 inches exactly. Depth of the blade is 1¼ inches. The weight is 13.5 ounces on the nose. And that's all the specs that I need to give. Skull cracker on the back there. Not overly pointy, not overly obtuse. Didn't want it catching on anything. It's got a full guard, as in top and bottom. Now you might recognise the element of the handle from the Patron, which I've explained in the Injack review. But this really is, this is, like I say, this ain't a game. You know what I mean? This is no bullshit now. This isn't me making a knife that I think looks cool and a fighting knife or whatever. This is based on my experience as a knife maker and Mr. Ruby's decades of experience within that exact field. 6mm stock. I must say that Craig recommended 5mm stock, but I went for 6 to keep the weight up, and I hope that's not a problem. Jimping on top, secure as you like. My Carter grips. Now what I've done here is basically I wanted this to be as user serviceable as possible. So we've gone for chain ring bolts, because it's going to be a lot easier to find an Allen key or a penny, should you need to, than it will be to find a T10 Torx bit. So we've gone for chain ring bolts there, and we've gone for my Carter scales, because I believe that ultimately they're the best for grip with the minimum amount of texturing. rubbed down to a 60 grit, and these are all individually shaped. This isn't just run round a router. Every single angle on here is hand shaped to give maximum grip with minimum, I don't know what the term is, but it's like when the corner digs into your bone, you know, bone of your finger or something like that. Basically you can grip this as hard as you like and there's no digging in at all. It really is secure and comfortable. Square sided for maximum torque, full guard, like I say, and the hippie basher. And the good thing about the micarta is that should it lose its tactility over time, which it can do, all it takes is another rub down with some 60 grit and you don't lose any of the shape, any of the profiling, but it brings that texturing immediately back. And of course, should your hands get soaked with blood, sweat, gunk, this really is an amazingly tactile handle. Should you need it, but more than likely, a hammer grip. Canted at an angle for extra slashing power. Now this is a little naughty of me to even sort of advertise this knife due to UK law, so I'm not going to call this the fighter anymore. Alright, I've called it that. This is a CRF-1. So if you want to contact me about it, CRF-1, Craig Ruby Fighter Mark 1, and this is a working prototype. After I've done some testing with this, I've done some tip testing. I'll drop that little video in here now, just stabbing up some wood. Tip held up perfectly. I have reprofiled the tip ever so slightly, just to give it a little bit more of a spine to it. But there's a reason why it's 6.5 inches. There's a reason why it's swedged. There's a reason why it's jimped. There are reasons behind every single possible element of this knife, and I'm sure you can all imagine what those reasons are. So, like I say, no bullshit. This is serious business, you know, without wishing to sound melodramatic or anything like that. All the knives I've made so far have led up to this point here, because there is a very real possibility that one day the hands that hold one of these knives is going to need this knife to defend their life, and to me that's a sobering thought. You know, that's serious. So I mean, and not to belittle any of my other knives. Obviously, you know, if they're used in a defensive fashion, that's fair enough. They can be. But this is with the express purpose of being used in that fashion. So once I've done a little bit of testing, this will be going to Craig over in Virginia for some proper testing, body armour, you know, defence tactics, hand-to-hand combat, that sort of business, and I'll be eagerly awaiting the results of that. So thanks for coming along, guys. I hope you like it, because it's fucking awesome. Peace.